schwa, the prototypical weak vowel, has the interesting quality that in some environments it can coalesce with an adjacent sound, where that adjacent sound is a sonorant. Now, by a sonorant, I mean a nasal, a lateral, or more generally a liquid. So, particularly and n, schwa and n, can coalesce to give syllabic n. This is what happens in a word like southern, or suddenly. Theoretically, you can think of it as sudden, and indeed sometimes it's pronounced sudden, but usually it's pronounced sudden. Sudden, so we have a process converting into sudden. And the same thing happens in garden. Sometimes you hear garden, but usually it's garden. And also in various other kinds of words. Let's take some more examples. Now, monotonous, not mob, weakness to verb, not all, again, a weakness to verb, not weakness to verb. Monotonous. But notice that here we've got the sequence schwa n. And that's why people quite often pronounce it monotonous. Monotonous. And of course, because that's now a T before an N, you also get the variant of this glottal stop, monotonous. That's a little bit down market from RP, but it can easily be there. Monotonous. Anyhow, there with this convalescence of schwa n. This is optional. It's perfectly okay to say monotonous, but you'll often hear it around. Similarly, in a word like to detonate an explosive, detonate, this and coalesce into detonate. To detonate. And again, therefore, with the glottal stop also to detonate. Notice that this N in detonate has to be syllabic. This word still has 3 syllables, detonate. And it wouldn't be possible in this word to use a plain N and say detonate. That's not possible. Furthermore, it can even happen in things like bread and cheese. Why? Because we get bread, weak form of and is bread and cheese. Now, you can see that this schwa then is then in position to coalesce into a syllabic N, giving bread and cheese, which is the usual way of pronouncing that phrase, bread and cheese. From the point of view of comprehension, listening comprehension, you must be ready when you hear to hear that as and. Up and down, up and down. This process, syllabic consonant formation, as I call it, is subject to constraints depending on the phonetic environment. But these constraints are really rather complicated. In some environments it happens very readily, in other environments less readily. It's not really possible to say that it's absolutely obligatory in some environment, or even that it's absolutely barred in other environments. It's rather the particular environments favour it and others disfavour it. So the environment after D, in garden, in bread and cheese, favours it very strongly. It tends to happen there. Whereas a preceding nasal, for example, very strongly disfavours it. So the word woman is not usually pronounced woman. I don't say that it's never pronounced woman, but it's not usually pronounced woman. This schwa n doesn't readily coalesce after a nasal. Similarly, canon doesn't become canon. 1 and 1 makes 2 doesn't become 1 and 1, but 1 and 1. Equally, it seems to be rather disfavoured by a preceding consonant cluster. Not quite as strongly as by nasal, but for example, the station just near here, which is called Euston, is more usually called Euston than Euston. It can be said as Euston, you'll hear people say Euston Station, but it's a relatively unusual form. It's more usually Euston Station. Particularly when the cluster involves a nasal, we tend not to get syllabic consonant formation. We say London for the name of this city, not usually London. This is of interest, I think, mainly to speakers of German, because in German the corresponding rule has much wider application than in English. You can do it in German in all sorts of environments where you don't do it in English. The second one we've got on the handout is schwa plus L making syllabic L. And the example is medal. Theoretical starting point medal, compare medallion and whatnot, but almost always normally pronounced medal, medal. And notice that this means that medal, the one you have there, is identical in sound with the verb to meddle, where the spelling perhaps suggests a syllabic L rather more. They are absolute homophones. It's the same thing we get in a word like total. And there are two words pronounced idle. Can you think what they are? Idle, 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 idle. One of them is spelled I-D-O-L, the other one is spelled I-D-L-E. So one of them is a superstitious object of veneration, and the other one means lazy. Both pronounced the same as idle. This is why we have spelling problems with things like principle. I don't know if you confuse the two spellings of principle, but English people find it very difficult to remember which one is spelled P-A-L and which is spelled P-L-E at the end, because they're pronounced the same. What about a word like satellite? Can you see what may happen here? Satellite. Oh, coalesces into syllabic L, giving satellite, 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 satellite. Or even with a glottal stop, satellite, satellite. That's not quite RP, it is nevertheless a satellite. Same thing in catalogue becoming catalogue. Catalogue. No need to do this, it's optional, but you should be aware that native speakers often do it. We are not alone. We are not alone. Coalesces into all. We're not alone. We're not alone. We're not alone. Or with the glottal stop, we're not alone. We're not alone. All of these are examples of this syllabic consonant formation. Schwa and M can make syllabic M in blossom becoming blossom, rhythm becoming rhythm, have some cake becoming have some cake. The weak form of some is sum, which very readily becomes sum. The weak form of them is dum, which readily becomes. In fact, it's rather difficult to hear the difference between the two, and it's utterly unimportant. Also, though in RP and similar accents less commonly, we get schwa plus R, making a syllabic R. Now, of course, this happens in American English, where a word like father, you can think of it as having a which coalesces into father. Because we say father with no R, that doesn't apply to us. But when we add suffixes like ing to stems with then we can get it. So here we've got gathering. Now, we can say gathering with gathering, but equally, perhaps more likely, we get gathering with syllabic gathering, gathering, gathering. As we shall see in a minute, this then acts as a possible input to a further process of compression, so we can end up, in fact, with gathering. Okay, that's the general principle of syllabic consonant formation, which we'll come back to in a minute when we look at this business of compression.